Hey, good afternoon. How's it going? It's lovely to see you. I'd love to see more of you. Come on, there are cameras on those computers. Turn them on, turn them on. You can't be a millionaire real estate agent if you're hiding behind your computer. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So I'm excited to see you. I'm excited to kind of work through this material. I wanted to get us started with just a quick story from about I don't know, a decade or 15 years ago or so. I was talking with the owner of a number of market centers down in the Atlanta area, who became our regional director for a while. His name is Sean Rawls. Some of you know Sean or know of Sean. And he was talking to me about his intro into the MREA. And Sean was a real estate agent. He had grown a real estate business, and was having a conversation with somebody who said, have you read this new book, The Millionaire Real Estate Agent? And kind of went and got the book and read the book. And the aha that he had from that was, so wait a minute, like nobody told me there was a manual. Like this is just blueprints for a house, and depending on how big you want to build your house, you just follow blueprints in here. And so the idea of the material in this book is, sure, it may be entertaining, and sure, it may be about mindset, about business growth, about real estate specifically, pieces of it, right? But at the end of the day, one of the things I want to make sure that we all recognize as we embark on kind of breaking it down and talking through the models, talking through the mindset, talking through the whole structure of what Gary and Jay put together and gave us, is that it's nobody's opinion, right? This book was distilled from all the people that are featured in the back of the book, and what they did to create the businesses and the incomes from those businesses that they did, distilled down into models that anyone can follow, right? So don't miss that the back of the book outlines where all this information came from. And here's what's cool: 20 plus years later, as Gary was writing the sequel, right? Because like any good film, it needs a fabulous sequel. So the MREA 2, which had been in production and in process for a number of years, the research on that basically came back and said, everything we did 20 years ago it all stands, right? The research was solid. The models are solid. We're going to tweak them a little here and there for industry changes in the last 20 years. Other than that, though, they're still solid. So here's what's fun. It's just fact. It's nobody's opinion. You get to really look at what drives a real estate business forward versus what perhaps maybe doesn't, or at least doesn't do it quite as quickly or as efficiently. So that's my intro. We were targeting the first 97 pages of the book, right? Which again, for those of you who read through, would you agree is kind of mostly about mindset, right? The first quarter of the book is about kind of how we're thinking. And so what I want to make sure we do is give you all as much time as possible, another 55 minutes or so, to kind of really put out on the table the things that your ahas, the things that you underlined, the things that you found powerful, the questions that you might have. And do everyone a favor: if you're referencing something that is specific, reference the page if you would. Tell us where to find that, because we may want to make a note in the book ourselves, or highlight something, or take notes on the side. So tell us where you're getting that info if you have something specific, and if the comments are more generic, then that's awesome as well. So pages 0 through 97. Who wants to kick us off? What were your ahas? What did you pull away from those first 97 pages that you want to make sure that that we all recognize? Yeah, Tony.
It's so simple, and yet it's such a big deal, and you hear it all the time, is think big, aim high, act bold. If you don't have that, you don't have anything else. I mean, you really don't.
Yeah, I love that. Right? Think big, aim high, act bold.
Well, what struck me is that he said, success is easier than you think. It's less complicated than you make it. And I always think that success, number one, what does it really mean, And then how do I get from here to there in steps? But doing that, what it takes, I make it much more complicated than it has to be.
Yeah. I'll tell you who here, because I can tell you, I understand what Karen's talking about at a high level, right? We belong to the overthinkers club, right? Don't we, Karen? And
every day,
right? And so if the cool part about reading these first 97 pages is achievement in real estate really is simpler than you think it is. It's simpler than we want to make it. If you'll give yourself over to how simple it is. Again, that's not the same as easy, right? But it is simple. It takes hard work, but it is simple. If we give ourselves over to the things that are documented in terms of activities that push us forward and give away, right? See, to me, the follow-up to Karen is the conversation about leverage, right? The 3 L's of real estate. You've got leads and listings. And for most of us, we get that. Like, we know we need leads, and we know that a focus on listings brings us forward faster. It's the 3rd L that we struggle with. It's the leverage piece. Who can we put in place to do the things that I shouldn't be spending my time on because they're not quite dollar productive, that will allow me to move forward faster, right? And circling back to Tony, think big, aim high, act bold. I kind of missed I wanted to bring you my version. I have the old book because this is the new book after who is it, McGraw-Hill? Yeah, after McGraw-Hill picked them up. But when they couldn't get anyone to publish it and they self-published the first run of these books, I have one of those copies. And I'm pretty sure Think Big, Aim High, Act Bold is actually on the cover of the old ones, right? So the idea of setting your sights really high and then going for it and doing things that maybe not everybody is doing. Remember, successful people are willing to do things that others are simply not willing to do. And that's the act bold portion of that. Not a bad mantra to give yourself every single morning, right? Donna Gilbert.
Am I on? Yeah, I'm unmuted. So yeah, so I love what you said at the beginning about what this book actually is. It is a little bit, well, not a little bit. It's unlike any other book that we read as a business building book because it is a recipe. It's a roadmap. But here's the important thing. It not only gives you the tools and in great detail, the tools, but it gives you the order in which to do them, right? Right? If we're making an angel food cake and we have the flour and the sugar and the eggs, you need to know which goes in first and in what proportions. And if you think of this book, I mean, you should never, well, this is me preaching. I don't think this book should ever be far from your left or right hand, depending if you're left or right-handed, because every answer is actually kind of right in there. So yeah, read it over and over and over again, and you get it on audio. I just flip it on while I'm driving in the car. I just have the words playing in my head.
Yeah, and it's funny because what Donna says is when you have a question about your business, the answer is in here. She's 100% right about that, right? You just have to recognize that the answer is in here, and you have to be willing to accept the answers that are given, right? Because what we want to do is we want to say, oh, well, no, that doesn't work for me. That only works for people who are in the business longer, or who live in Texas, or who have a big team, or who this or who that or the other thing. We think that the answers don't what's the word I'm looking for? Don't
pertain.
pertain, thank you very much, to us. They do. Just FYI. Yeah, Marissa.
No, as you were saying that, it popped into my head on page 37, right? He's reiterating that it's so important to follow the model, that a lot of times we like to get creative, kind of do our own thing, because we're us, we're very special, but that it's so imperative to follow the proven system first. And then that'll lead you to a success naturally. And then once you hit a ceiling following the model, you're allowed to get ever so slightly creative.
Yeah, so true. And the graphic on 37 helps so much in, at least for me, it helps really illustrate what Marissa just said, right? If you're building a house and the foundation is that creativity in that point, and the models are the base of that triangle, but you do it backwards, well, you don't have anything steady. You don't have anything that can actually stand, that can be built on top of. When you take a model and you make that the foundation and you build on top of it, right? That's how we're building buildings now that are over 1 kilometer tall on planet Earth, and likely we'll get to a point where we're building buildings that are 1 mile tall, right? Because the foundation is so strong, so deep, so wide that you can build on top of it. Very, very well said. Marcel and then Ben.
On page 41, he said it was time for him to face the fact, like to succeed as a real estate professional, you have to generate client leads. I knew that before, I always know that, but when I read this sentence, it hit me, like the truth just hit me again. I was, wow, I can stop reading here and just go back to lead generate. It doesn't matter what way I choose, I have to lead generate, and that's it.
Yeah, well said. And it's, it is kind of funny because some of I love part of the joy of kind of diving back into this material is that even things that you've heard before that cerebrally, all of a sudden the book kind of stands up and goes whack, right? And you're like, oh man, I hear that differently today than maybe I ever heard it before. We are all in the lead generation business. We just happen to also need to have some real estate skills. But if all you have is real estate skills and you have no clients, what's the point, right? Yeah, Ben.
Yeah, confession, I gotta apologize to Donna Gilbert and you and everybody. I never read this book. I never opened it up in the, 2 years that you've known me. And I actually decided to start picking it up over Christmas break. And then I saw the email about this. So it seemed to work out. And, a couple of things about it for me that really hit home I read the first, quarter of the book. Right on the title where, it says it's not about the money, it's about being the best person you could be. That's hitting me right now. Because, when I first got into real estate, I'm like, hustler mentality. I just want to get deals. I just want to make money. And I'm not really focusing on me as much. And then the other part that hit me was the learn before you earn. Again, I was just trying to make money. And I haven't built the systems that I need, right, to sustain a long career in this business. I'm confident that I'll get there, and with the help of this book.
Yeah, I love that. And I love your transparency, because the idea, and here's what's cool, right? You were able to make money. Like if you never pick up this book, it's not like you can't create income in real estate. However, what Ben's starting to discover is without a foundation, without those systems in place, it's hard to move past that. It's E to P, right? I mean, I think we read that.
I hit a ceiling this year, probably, I'd say, and now I got to break through that ceiling this year.
Yeah. And breaking through ceilings is all about systems and people, right? Systems and people. Debbie Orr.
So what you said about things sounding different when you read them multiple times, I'm convinced it's a magic book and the words actually change in the book because, right, Donna? I mean, they just are different. They change them from one time to the next, because so many things you go, huh, I never read that before. And Ben, thank you for saying that, because one of the things that stood out to me was that learn before you earn this time. I had just not clicked, that had not clicked with me. There's a certain amount, and you can overdo it. You want to learn and then get into action, learn and get into action. And yet it is important not to just say, oh, how hard can this be? I can go do this. Yeah, you can. You can do it better if you learn a little bit first.
Well, and you know what, Debbie, take that back to what we started with Tony, right? It's think, aim, right? Those are all cerebral and planning mechanisms. But then the last one is act bold. You have to take action, right? So you've got to do all three. And to Debbie's point, if all we're doing, if we get stuck in the cerebral part of it, and we're thinking and thinking and thinking, and we're aiming and we're aiming, so we're planning and planning, right? That's all learn to earn, but we're never actually taking action. There's no way to know if what you're learning actually is going to work, right? You've got to put it into play to know whether or not you're any good at it, whether you've learned enough, whether you've learned the right things, whether there's something you can add to it, whether there's some kind of expansion you can move to, right? You've got to be in action. Love that. Marissa, did you have your hand up again? Yes, Marissa, then Tammy.
No, it was funny because I started reading this book again. This will be my third time. The first time I read it, like as I was getting licensed, and then I tried to read it again, like maybe a year later. But the first two times I read it, I was like, this book is just too dense. None of this makes sense. And I started reading it this time. I said, oh my God, this book's in English now. Like, when did that happen? Like, I think I finally sat through maybe enough like training courses where you start recognizing like these foundational concepts that are just being played on repeat in a lot of the rooms that we're in. And of course, like a little bit of experience that it was like, I'm actually enjoying reading the book, believe it or not. Like, I think I might actually learn something this time. So it really is like, yeah, a magic book that the words keep changing every single time that you find like something new.
Yeah, it's the whole concept of the human who crosses the river, right? Because you never cross the same river twice, because you're different as a human because you've changed and evolved, and the river's different because the river continues to flow and move, right, and be different. Tammy.
There's a lot I got out of this book this time, and I gotta say, like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go because what better way to hang out with realtors but in a book club book, and this stuff kind of pertains a lot to mortgages. But I was like, you know what, I want to actually read it because I haven't really listened to it or focused on it since I joined Keller Williams as a partner like almost 4 years ago now, believe it or not. And so I kind of read it. I kind of read it first, and then as I'm reading it, I'm like, wait a minute. My business has changed so much in the last 4 years. I've had the best 4 years of my career. Thank you, KW family. And, you know, it got to the point where I stopped focusing on the basics and everything, and starting with leads. Like, I don't remember who said it, but I heard once that nothing happens until you sell something, and you need to have the leads. And I feel that I've been so focused on my team and growing my team and growing my team and making sure my team knows what to do, and making that I forgot to, not that I forgot, but I forgot to focus on the leads. I forgot to focus on the basics. And, you know, this past weekend, I went out and I visited agents and I did the whole shaking hands and kissing babies thing. And it just, I'm so grateful that you started this, because it helps every industry. This isn't just a real estate Bible, but I think when the teacher is ready, the student appears, or when the student is ready, the teacher appears, kind of a thing.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. I love it. And thus the book appears, right? Donna.
And I've changed what I wanted to contribute about 30 times since the hands went through, because it's so valuable. But yeah, I mean, it's a living, breathing document, because like you said, Marissa, when you first start, you don't have a concept of what the concepts are. So it's hard to even relate them. And then as you start to learn, it becomes clear. It's kind of like when you join Keller Williams, especially if you've been at a different brokerage, it's like, what are they talking about? What is that language? And then all of a sudden it starts coming out of your own mouth. And you're like, well, how did that happen? But you know, what I love about this book is how succinct it can be before it gets expansive. And let me just say, so we were just, Marcel, I think, said page 41. If you look at just that little paragraph right at the bottom, I mean, this is what my page 41 looks like. I mean, it's like crazy. But right there, you know, we're all, in fact, we're right in the middle of doing the listing challenge. And so we know that listings are important, leads, listings, leverage, we get that. But often we forget why. And just in those few lines, Gary, Jay, and Dave Jenks lay it all out to us. I mean, they tell us it's the high leverage. This is, if you're going to be doing anything, do this because it spills off in so many other ways. And he said, yeah, I get it. You can sell buyer listings and a, you know, a $10,000 commission is the same as a $10,000 commission. And yet it's not, because the work that you put in, you know, and the time you had to spend. And here's the part that I focused on this year, sometime at the end of 2021, I hit on these last few lines of this where, you know, so how many listings should I get? I'm a solo agent. What should be? I had no parameters around that. And there it says right there, it says individually, an individual agent can personally obtain 15 to 25 listings. And I thought to myself, a month. Sorry, I screamed out loud, didn't I? But it hits you that way. It's like, oh man, I'm like, I need to get busy, right? It's like, so Gary just told me right there, that is kind of the expectation that is doable. It's not only doable, it's kind of like the standard. It kind of changes your thinking about it.
Yeah, 100%. So we'll go right back to Tony, right? Think big. And so there's an example of think big, right? Think big. How many of us have business plans that say, you know, I'm focused on obtaining my 1 or my 2 listings a month? Now, that's not a judgment that 1 or 2 listings a month is not sufficient, is not awesome, is not whatever it is you choose to make it. However, to Donna's point, if you're talking about listings, and when you, I love the words they use. Listings are the high leverage, maximum earning opportunity in our industry. Like mic drop, go home, just list. Right? Do we have to read much more? I guess we have to read the how, right? But there's the standard about what, right? Most people don't argue about we need leads, right? In a sales industry, we need leads. Oftentimes what people do choose to argue about is what kind of leads. And again, the 3, Marcel put it in the chat, the 3 L's are the framework. They are the foundation. And it's not the 2 L's and a B. It's not leads, leverage, and buyers. It's leads, listings, and leverage. Right? So such a great point, such a great point. So it's a powerful paragraph at the bottom of 41, isn't it? It kind of, again, when you use the book as a blueprint to grow a big, efficient, effective business, there's the clue right there. And later on, when we start working in the models and you start doing the do, and suddenly you're like stuck with all these buyers and you don't know why your business isn't growing so well. If you go back to page 41 and top of page 42, the answer is right there. Because as one person, if you haven't moved into leverage yet, as one person, you can be operating at that 15 to 20 listing per month level, or you could be operating at the 5 to 8 buyer per month level, or at a time level, right? Again, it's your choice. But if you're wondering why you might be getting stuck in terms of bandwidth, sometimes it's just about time. People who make more money in our industry don't have more time. They just have a different focus, and they choose to focus on things that, like listings, that don't take as much time to earn the same amount of money as a buy or sell might. Tammy.
I love how it says at the end of that too. It says one listing properly marketed could generate and produce one closed buyer. So one listing equals a buyer. So that's 2 transactions. And when I think about what you guys get as an average commission, my question to you is, what can I do to help you get more listings? If I can help everybody on this call get 1 listing, that's 1 buyer, that's 30 deals for me, I'm in. Sign me up. I will help you get listings.
Yeah, so do see Tammy after this call and say, hey, let's talk about brainstorming how you can help me get more listings. Because see, Tammy said before, this isn't just about real estate, right? On the mortgage side, Tammy makes money from buyers, right? But it's clear from here that you need listings in order to generate buyers. So there you have it. Let's focus on the things that, because the same can't be true backwards, by the way. 1 buyer properly marketed does not necessarily equal or equate to, with any consistency, a new listing. It's kind of a one-way street on that, isn't it? Did anybody ever?
I
did
now
anybody
have an
spend-
idea for my next video, so thank you for that.
I love that. Did anybody spend time on 49? That little chart says it all. '49, the 6 misunderstandings chart, the little cheat sheet on the 6 misunderstandings.
Well, it's, I feel like when I read it, I've said it all to myself, and I feel like it's almost like you're making excuses.
Yeah, the myths can feel, if you allow them to take up residence in your head, they can become excuses. They can become the reason we give ourselves the past, the reason we don't achieve at higher levels, right?
Mhm.
I'd like to add something about that.
Yes, sir.
Like the very first one, I can't do it. I think this business is largely about a battle against yourself, right? And conquering and being the best person you can be. And a lot of times we get in our heads because we're trying to compare ourselves to the guys we see on TV doing it, or the guys on social media, and everybody making themselves look so huge and so great. So, and we don't need to worry about any competition at all. You just have to worry about being the best you could do. And the rest will fall into place. You'll be happy. But don't compare yourself. Just do your own thing.
Yeah.
And just get out of your head with it. Just do it.
Yeah, get out of your head and get out of your own way, right? That's what I heard Ben say. Like it's easy to step in your own way, especially from your head, from a judgment perspective, right? It's easier to. So let me ask you this, right? Who is arguably the most successful investor that the planet Earth has ever seen? Yes,
Warren
Buffett.
Buffett.
Correct. Right. Right. And if you've ever read or listened to anything Warren Buffett has ever said, what he talks about is just putting on blinders and doing the thing that he knows that he has to do. Now, he didn't do that once he became Warren Buffett. He did that in order to become Warren Buffett, right? It didn't matter what was going on over here or over here. He wasn't distracted by whatever the glitterati that existed out here was saying or doing. He made decisions about what he thought the best path forward was based on the research that he did and his talents and his whatevers. He invested in what he knew, and he put the blinders on and just went and went and went and went and went. And now everyone looks around and says, well, of course, Warren Buffett did great because he's Warren Buffett. But he wasn't always Warren Buffett. Everyone didn't always know his name, right? But the thing that got him there was, I can do it. Was it can be done in my market. Was it doesn't take too much time or too much effort, right? If you read the antithesis of these 6 misunderstandings, it's him putting the blinders on and just going with the understanding that he was going to achieve great things. And then lo and behold, he achieved great things, right? You got to think it. and believe it before it actually comes into your world. What else about these misunderstandings? Anybody else spend some time on these? Thoughts, comments, concerns? Yes, Donna.
So the one that really speaks to me, and I can't say that I said it to myself, and yet it speaks to me now, looking back, and that's the one that my clients will only work with me. And realizing, that if you do that, that's a self-limiting thought, that because you can't work with everyone. You do have to put the leverages, the tools, the systems in place. It may not be people, it can just be tools, it can be various things. But the point being, why is it that they don't can just work with you? It's because of your standards, which is you. That's the transference of you to whatever sort of admin help you might have, buyer agency help you might have, whatever it is that you're going to do to grow your tentacles further, grow your business bigger, that is you. You're just putting it out there on the table in a book form. Here it is. This is how we do it. We being me. This is how we do it. And just following that, every one of your clients gets you through that process.
Yeah. Yeah, Gary taught us a long time ago now or he asked the question, taught us by asking us the question, do you want to build a business as big as you can build it or as big as it can be built? And what's the difference between those two things?
People.
Yeah, well, the word you
Right.
is in the first one, and the word you is not in the second one. Do you want to build it as big as you can build it or as big as it can be built? And the second you get out of your own way, right? The second you get out of because some of that is ego, right? And that's not necessarily a negative ego. Some of it is very positive ego, and yet there's still a version of ego that lives in that, right? I sold that person a house, so therefore no one else could ever do anything as good as I could ever do it. And what's fascinating is that the real growth in your business starts to come from when you start to look around for people who can do it way better than you. You're okay with that, and you support that from underneath. Say, you know what? You're better at that than I ever will be. So why don't we be in business together? You do that piece, I'll do this piece, and we'll just grow. And as long as you have a standard in your business, as Donna said, and you hold everyone in your business accountable to that standard, the clients, you're all brilliant. I love you all. However, your clients don't necessarily need you as long as they're receiving the standard that you and your business has set. So it's a really big, for those of you who struggle with that one, it's a learning curve that you need to kind of work your way through step by step by step. If you make it about you, you can only ever do as much as you personally can do. Debbie.
Yeah, I must say, Donna, I don't know where you get all this empowerment from, but you're just so great with all these analysis. I'm like, we got to get Jacket's jacket. These concepts that you're telling us about, it's amazing. Thinking it through your eyes, it's just, it's a whole different ball game when you look at it through your lens. And I'm grateful for that.
Well done. Well done. Debbie.
The other Debbie. I have three things now. First of all, I know where Donna gets all of this stuff. She's a student.
She's smart. Oh, she's a student. Yeah.
Total student of the model, and has found some great teachers. So that's awesome. My first thing was going to, my clients will only work with me because it is a trap. It is a trap that will hold you back. You must grow beyond it. And you need to ask the focusing question, is this task that I'm doing right now the best use of my time? Or should someone else be doing this while I'm doing something more dollar productive? And all the rest of what has already been said about standards and systems and all that falls into place. It's a process. But the other thing that I think, the other myth that I think gets a lot of us is having a goal and not fully realizing it is a negative. No, it's not. Without a target, you cannot achieve anything, let alone big, super big, enormous, giant, fabulous, with a focus on it. Don't be afraid to put a number down, and don't be afraid to put a number down that scares the pants off you. If
Well, but let
that's
me ask this.
really your number, if that's really your number,
But let me ask this. What if I fail?
what if you fail? Does the earth stop spinning? No. If you aim for something up here and you hit here, okay. And anything that you've done before was down here. I don't know how you can do anything without a specific target. Everything has to have a target.
Yeah, you know what? It's about failing forward, isn't it? Maybe we'll do a book club around that book, right? It's pretty much one consistent message over and over again, right? Fail, get up, fail, get up, fail, get up. Just fail faster, right? Get better at failing. If you get better at failing, you'll succeed more. It's a fascinating thing. Donna, then Marcel.
So yeah, and thank you for that blessing, Deb. That was lovely. And so here's the thing. I mean, Rick says it because I said it to him. Apparently, it popped out of my mouth once. You know, every day I want to learn something new. So I spend my time like in this room. This is step one with this book for the 99th time. Be around people who are talking about things at a higher level, even if all you do is sit there and listen, which is actually the best position to be in. Just absorb it, go looking for it, listen to it, I wonder why they said that. And book clubs like this, just go do that. But I wanted what Debbie Orr said about it being a trap to think that they can only work with you. It couldn't be truer. And yes, it does come from ego. It also comes from being busy. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I'm doing all these things. Oh my goodness. Be less busy and be less purposeful. You know, decide what the end goal is. And every time you have a decision point, pick the one that gets you to your goal, not maybe gets you to the thing that day. Make time. Debbie says this all the time. Debbie Orr is always talking about working on her business as opposed to working in the business, taking time to make sure you're moving that forward. And the ego can still exist because as it says here in the book, the standards that you're putting forward for the team that you are building, there's all that ego. It comes from you. It's just you have to make it reproducible so that you can explain it, hand it off to someone so that you can keep moving forward and your business can grow wider.
Yeah, I think about it as make sure that ego is holding hands with purpose, right? Make sure ego is holding hands with goals. Make sure ego is holding hands with standards. And when your ego is holding hands with those other things, that's when ego strength is a real benefit, right? Instead of a holdback. Marcel.
I was kind of stuck at some point. I know I used to tell Jen, I have all the cards in my hand. I have everything I need to succeed, but it's not happening. So when I was reading the page about think action, this is where I think that was my breakthrough. He said that even when we have all the cards in our hand, we kind of hide behind more research. It is the page 84. instead of just taking action, we are kind of trying to find more path or more information when we just have to take action. And I find out that that's true. I don't have a consistent plan of lead generation. I just don't take the right action. I just keep hiding behind a full-time student. I have to learn, I have to learn, I have to learn, and I am not doing what I need to do. And that's all.
Yeah, I love that. And the idea of one of the 9 ways an MREA thinks, right? One of the 9 ways an achiever thinks is to think action. It's about taking action, right? You can do all the cerebral in the world that you want, right? And there's a whole lot of us on this call who are really good at getting stuck in our heads. Trust me, as a fellow one of you, I see you. And you have to just remember that nothing really comes from that. A lot of thinking, a lot of energy, a lot of maybe great ideas, right? Any of you fall into the category of having more ideas than you know what to do with, but you don't take action on any of them. So right, there are all these great ideas stuck in your head. How are you changing the world? How are you changing the industry? How are you innovating? All those things that are in your head that you think are spectacular ideas, if you don't take action on them, you and the world never actually get to benefit from them. And if they end up being crappy ideas, well, so what? So that one, just push that one aside, move on to the next one, right? Action, 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 action. I love what Anna Holinsky put in the chat, right? Failing and becoming a failure are 2 different things, right? Successful people fail and then just get up and do again. Failures fail once and then just stay down, right? I lost the chat, so that's not exactly what Anna typed, but go back and read it because it was good. I paraphrased it. Go ahead, Bogdan.
I wanted to add to the failing part. Fail stands for first attempt in learning.
I love that.
If you can get that into your head, failing is not going to be a failure.
Yeah, and what's awesome is so then we first we fail, right? Then we sail, the second attempt in learning, and then we tail. Then we fail again and fail again. Then we sail again and sail again, right? Right? Because it's all just about you've got that first attempt. And what's cool is you'll get it right at some point, or you won't. And you'll decide that you're not going to continue down that path, right? Maybe I'm going to switch my focus. That's okay too, right? So much of what we're talking about has to do with stepping out of judging where you're at, how you're doing things, looking at the neighbors, looking at, the grass is always greener someplace else or in somebody else's world. One of my favorite, which he says through clenched teeth, expressions that people say is, "Oh, that person's so lucky." I want to leap across the table and strangle people when they say that. Oh, they're so lucky. Okay, most of the lucky people, the quote unquote lucky people that I know of, have worked their ass off to get exactly where they are. They have failed far more times than they have succeeded, right? It just from the outside, it looks like they were an overnight sensation, right? Who said that last? It's kind of common nowadays, but I forget who said it first. Yeah, I'm an overnight sensation. It only took me 25 years to get here. Some actor or something, I think. Dana.
Yeah, I have just 2 points. One was getting back to what Debbie Orr said about not reaching your goal does not necessarily mean you're failing. And I just feel I agree with that because you could have as your goal, selling $10 million worth of real estate and you sell only 8 million. And I would say you still had quite a good year, even though you did not reach your goal. So you couldn't really call yourself a failure for, on something like that. But my second point is when I was looking at these myths, another one that stood out to me was the 4th one, which was, it's too risky, I'll lose money. Because I liked his explanation that, and I think it pertains to a lot of the things we maybe think we might want to implement. None of them come with contracts generally that you have to lock in for 6 months or a year on, you can just take a chance on something for a month or two. And if it isn't working, then you stop doing it and you didn't, lose any more than 1 or 2 months worth of whatever it cost you.
Yeah, and Dana, I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I want to be sure to point out is, and he'll talk more about this when we get to a larger leverage conversation later in the book, but the point there is, even in terms of getting into business with other people and hiring people to do the things that are not dollar productive for you, you don't pay someone a year's salary up front, right? You pay them every 2 weeks, or you pay them, right? So if you're hiring and all of a sudden you feel you've made a mistake, well, what's at risk is whatever you're paying someone to do, whatever job or task that you're hiring them to do, for a short period of time. It's not like you'll be destitute all of a sudden because you've hired someone for $50,000 and had to write a check up front one time.
Honestly, usually, at least in the regular corporate world, when somebody comes on as a new employee, part of it is they're on like a 2 or 3 month probationary period. So if you were to hire somebody, you can just make it clear that, okay, I think you'd be great, but the first, like, however many months, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, let's consider that a probationary period. And we'll do a performance review at that time and see how it's working out for both of us. And then at least you know that they're not gonna, if it's not working out, you don't feel guilty that you're gonna have to say to them, let them go, because they know that it's a probationary period.
Yeah, it is Donna just put in 30, 60, 90 in the chat. That is that path forward, right? By day 91, if you and I are still in business together and you work for me, well, your shortcomings on day 91 are on me, right? They're no longer, they're not on you. Now it's up to me to help you succeed. Those first 90 days are how we figure out if this is the right match, if this is the right path, by being really on purpose about that, right? But the point I wanted to make is, so many of us are so afraid to pull the trigger and get some help, right? That doesn't have to mean that you're hiring a full-time $50,000 a year assistant to sit next to you in the office every day. What if you started by recognizing that, you know what, I could have transaction management in my world tomorrow for $250 a transaction. I don't have to worry about, once I write the contract and negotiate it through, I don't have to worry about the rest of it until the closing table. How much more time would that free up for you to go and sell more houses, find more leads, right? And our industry does a terrible job. Well, they actually do a really fantastic job of brainwashing real estate agents into thinking that that's the job. That is not the job. That's an administrative job. Your job is to find and connect and grow relationships, convert them into appointments, and create contracts on the buy side and the list side. The rest of it is designed as an administrative role. And the faster you get there and recognize that all that stuff that we continue to do, meeting the appraiser, calling this one, that one, doing all the paperwork, all that stuff, that is somebody else's job. Tammy.
Going back to the myth understanding number 6, it hit me as I was flipping through, and I remember reading this page 61, bottom of page 61, top of page 62. I think it's important for us to keep in mind that perspective is important, in that this is a journey. When you set forth to do something, you're not expected to be the best at it on day one. And if you start reading this about his Gary's childhood poster in his room, and if you just start reading all these failures by this person before you get to the end where it's discovered who it is, you think that this person is a massive failure, right? And then you get to the end and you see it's Lincoln, and he's one of the greatest presidents of all time. So just keep at it,
Yeah, it's perspective, isn't it? Right. Perspective and perseverance. Just keep going and keep going and keep going, because who knows, one day you actually may be elected president. I love that. Tammy.
I liked where he went into your big why. because I always struggled with coming up with a why. You know, I got into the mortgage business, and I got into the mortgage business because I lost my full-time job, which ironically is how many of you end up in real estate. You kind of were forced into it somehow. Most of us did not wake up and say, oh, I want to get into mortgage, or I want to get into real estate. You get into it somehow. And I know that when people would ask me, well, what's your why? Why are you doing this? My why used to be things like, just so I don't starve, because I don't want to have a job where someone, you know, where I have to punch a clock every day, or, you know, I'm just trying to find something kind of a thing. And I got to say, it probably was the first bold that I did with you guys that I finally really understood what my why was. And ever since I discovered that, it's really made my job more enjoyable. It's become more of a career. And now I've even gotten to the point where I think, wow, what if I could actually sell this business down the road? And I know for you guys, it's a possibility too. So I think I love the exercise that he does to try to get you to go to really discover your why. Like, okay, well, why that? Why that? Why that? Why that? And it really wasn't until I sat down and actually did that, where I think he even says in the book at one point, okay, now like put the bookmark in here, close the book and go do it. And I really think that until you know why you're doing this, you'll flounder. At least that was my experience.
Yeah, the why drives everything, doesn't it? Kind of gets you out of bed. Here's what's so important about what Tammy just said. Anyone can succeed without something powerful pulling them forward when things are hopping and things are good and everyone's smiling and everyone's saying yes. It's when things go sideways, right? It's when it's 4 degrees outside and you're nice and toasty in your bed and the alarm goes off at 5 o'clock so you can get up and go for a run, that you need something bigger to pull you forward than I like to run. I don't like to run. You need something powerful. You need some powerful goals and health reasons. My intent is to live to at least 100. That's more powerful. Why? Why is my goal to live to at least 100? Mine is so I can be around to torture my children well into their 70s. Right, but the idea of those powerful whys that pull you through when you don't wanna, right? That's how I personally look at the big why, is how is that going to help me when I come into an I don't wanna? Because I don't know about the rest of you. Anybody else have a day or a moment or an hour or a week or a whatever where you're just suffering from the I don't wanna? I don't want to lead generate. I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go do this. It might snow tomorrow. I don't want to do something today, right? That why has to pull you through all that. Donna Gilbert. You have muted yourself.
Sorry, back on page 84, there's in the middle of the page talking about studying a lot and researching a lot and all that sort of thing. And yet there is a certain amount of that does need to happen, but then yes, you do have to take action. And the line here that speaks to me, it's the analogy of Wilson on Castaway. Okay, and we're talking about that, and how he has that package there and he just keeps thinking about it. And it says, eventually it instilled in him the willingness, sorry, I lost my place, the willingness and the faith necessary to take action. And here's the line: fueled by the belief that he would succeed. He had enough in there and enough want and enough knowledge. I kind of know what I'm talking about. And that fueled him to say, I could do this, which is the opposite side of, oh, I'm so scared I'm going to fail, which we like to focus on. And yet there are times when I know everybody in here has looked at a friend or a colleague and said, I think I could do that. That's what that knowledge base starts to build.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Because I'll tell you what, without belief, like doubt, that's an achievement killer.
Yeah.
Doubt's an achievement killer. And so that belief in you know, those of you taking Ignite tomorrow, you'll hear me say this, you know, but belief is massive, and we don't always have it in ourselves, especially in the beginning of something. And so what you need to do is you need to find someone who believes in you and just borrow their belief in you for a while, right? Who is that for you? Who will you borrow from that belief about your own ability to succeed, even if it's not instinctive or innate to you at the moment? Love it. Fueled by the knowledge of success. That's a pretty powerful phrase, isn't it? Brilliant. Top of page 86, if you look in the gray, there is no failure. You win or you learn. Either is okay, just to go back to the failure piece before. I love Joe Rothschild at the bottom of that. Some of those little gray things, they're worth the price of reading, by the way, right? I don't have any fear about calling people or knocking on doors. It's where business comes from. That's just what it is, right? Look at page 89. I just want to point out, if you didn't read that, make sure that you hit that, right? Because we're into the 9 ways a millionaire real estate agent thinks, which, by the way, are not too different from how, if you read books about wealth and acquiring wealth, these things they're in all those books. It's how successful people, it's how millionaires think, it's how billionaires think, it's how people who succeed and achieve at high levels think, right? And on page 89, number 7, that's an important one to me, at least. Think competitively and strategically. And sometimes, for those of you who are more linear thinkers, right, sometimes competitively and strategically means you have to veer away from your linear comfort zone. It's not always one step and then the next step and then the next step and the next step. Sometimes thinking competitively and strategically is out of the box. It's everyone else is doing this, so I think I'm going to focus over here because strategically I'll stand out. Right? How can you be strategic about lead generation? How can you be strategic about what you learn? How can you be strategic about where the industry is going? Right? If you were, let me use Marissa just as a quick example, because, right, Marissa speaks Spanish. If Marissa was being strategic about growing her business, she would be polishing up her Spanish more and more and more and more, knowing full well that the future of our industry is heavier into the Latino community than it has been previously. And so a knowledge of Spanish may well help strategically in the growth of that business if you are bilingual in that. So it's just one example about how you can be strategic about things you do that cycle back to your business. Can anyone else think about things that you do strategically or how you think competitively that might help? Yeah, Donna.
So actually, I was in this conversation this morning because we were talking about the struggle of a buyer's market. And if you're working with buyers, and you know what, here's the thing, it has fueled me to get up in the morning and win. I mean, I'm like, put me in, coach, because you do it time after time after time. Somebody's winning the offer. Why shouldn't it be me and my people? What are the people who are winning? What are they doing? And I can turn to my clients and say, okay, are you willing to do that? And if they say yes, we move forward. And here's the thing, if they say no, I can move on.
Yeah.
Which is the other part of the strategy. It's like, okay, I'll see you when the market's softer, because I got to work with people right now who are willing to do what they need to do to win, because I'm only interested in winning the offer. And that was a major mindset shift when everybody's like, oh, the market is so hard. I'm like, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, because it reduces the competition, right? I mean, people have this thought that it perhaps increases the competition, except not the real competition. The people you're really in competition with are the people who are thinking competitively and strategically, and that's a far fewer number than just every licensee. right? If you look at the middle of page 91, as we tick out of time, Tammy, I'm going to come to you for the last word. Middle of page 91, the low achiever says, can we do that? And the high achiever says, why? Did someone say we can't? Tammy, bring us home.
I absolutely love that. I would have to say thinking strategically and competitively is my superpower. And I'm with Donna. I love this market. And I love that we're getting to the point where people can't use just any lender anymore. You know, my appraisal gap strategy, like I thought everybody knew how to do this. And when I brought it to you guys and I brought it to the world, it was like, what? There's an appraisal gap strategy. I've come up with ways to get your offers accepted. I like, to me, and I love how it gives the example of spades. Like spades is a card game. If you've ever played spades, it's a team of 4 people. There's no talking, and you have to play your cards in the correct order or you'll lose the game. And it's the person with the best hand doesn't always win because it's how you play the order of the game. By the way, I absolutely love spades. If anyone would want to play, I haven't played in years because I don't know anyone that knows how to play anymore. But anyway, like if you've got the top hand and you play them in the wrong order, you could lose the game and the person with the lower cards can win. So this is my superpower. I love thinking outside the box. So that's how I'll end it on that.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Guys, this was so powerful for me. I hope this was powerful for you. I want to just outline for you what we're going to do for next time. We are going to read from where we left off on page 97, the 3 L's of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And we're going to read right through page 190, which brings us through a discussion about the first 2 models. Not necessarily a deep dive of the first 2 models, but a discussion about the first 2 models. We'll get through that conversation. Then we'll move forward and we'll do the second 2 models in our 3rd week. Please note that next Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and so we are going to honor that day by not having our book club, and we will have the book club on Tuesday next week, 11 o'clock Tuesday instead of Monday.
Can you say the ending page again? Because I thought I misheard it.
Certainly, it's page, what did I say? I closed my book. Page 1, hold on.
190.
Page
193.
192 to finish listings. The conversation on listings.
Yes, so go right up to, so it is 192. It's not 190. I apologize. 192, which brings you right to the top of 192, which is model 3, the budget model. So we're going to stop just before the budget model. We're going to read a little bit about the economic model, and we'll read a little bit about the lead generation model and finish up some mindset. All good stuff. So up to the top of page 192, we will meet Tuesday of next week. I believe that's the 18th of January, 11 o'clock. Same bat time, same bat channel. I wish you all a spectacular week. I'll see some of you later for the 1 o'clock listings Q&A or tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Have a great one. See you soon.